I've nabbed my friend Jeff. Hello, Jeff. How are you? Jeff from Canada.
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. And what it is Jeff likes talking about, well, the Aryans, don't you?
Yeah, I've been looking at Aryan culture.
Okay, just make sure I put the speaker like that. Make sure that you're loud enough. Yeah, and also we just want to say that so we get this out right now. Jeff's opinion might be different to everyone else's, but Sun and Moon likes listening to the people, and the people have a lot to say. Jeff has a lot to say, and this is his version. And I like Jeff's version.
Well, it's a version that I'm sort of looking at through looking back at history, really. So I guess there's different versions, but eventually there's really only one version that ends up being the truth. So, I'm still asking questions and looking at things and putting pieces together, but it looks like we're basically predominantly either, Aryan of an Aryan gene with a white sort of skin gene or of Aryan culture, which just spread through this white man's race of slavery, basically, forcing people to convert.
I asked you a
Um,
question before we came on because now I've gone back and looked at a bit of history, even back to Edward III, and it probably goes back further than that, but Edward III all the way through, probably Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, James I, even looks like Tesla. They're all darker skinned people.
right. Well,
And you told me a
it's
bit of information. Do you want to explain that?
well, where did white people come from then? If there was all these black people around it, and it appears they sort of came out of the Middle East, and that's where the British Empire appears to come from Rome through the Byzantines and all that, and it's all Christian, which is Semitic, and from the Middle East, all their culture too.
Mm.
So, like, we might say somewhere like Ireland or Scotland, or, where they have all these really creamy white skinned people with really red hair and lots of freckles, and we're like, well, that's predominantly from that area, Scotland and Ireland, but it's not. They migrated there from the Middle East somehow. That's what it appears to me, anyway. Through this Aryan race, they're Aryans.
Because what I was saying to you was that considering there's been a lot of darker skinned people around for a very long time, I don't even like using the colour thing. A couple of people have told me off, but I don't know what to do because they don't like being called this and there's all that going on, but I'll just say darker skinned people. Um, as there were so many of them, especially even in the royal family, they were nobles, they were all sorts of things. They worked, they were nobles, they were just the same. Maybe we were the slaves. Um, I'm just surprised that there isn't just one colour or, there's still darker people and lighter people.
Yeah, it's like a pigment of your skin, but you're right. There's more to it than that. There's DNA composition in it. It can't be just all skin pigment. And even an Asian man's sort of slanted eyes, you can see that in Eskimos as well in certain places. And
Mm.
if that could be sunlight and
What did you tell
reflection.
me that they did in Egypt, though? Tell me that bit. Or tell
Well,
us
that
that
bit
bit.
about the white bread. Yeah, see this white bread thing, or the what then is it, they called it. And so they uncovered, there was a story, I'll just sort of skip through it, I guess, recommending that we all try and figure more out about it. But the Temple of Hathor was uncovered, and it was sort of discovered that it was more like an alchemic laboratory, basically, and it was all covered, had all this white powder in it, and it matched with all these hieroglyphics and stuff that they had where they would make this white bread, and they also called it what then is it. And so in this area of Egypt, which was all sort of Semitic, is down close to Phoenicia, which was in there, what we call the Middle East now, Phoenicia, and the Hittites were up top, and then the Aryans were the Persian Empire that sort of surrounded it up through Turkey and all that. But from Egypt, the pharaohs appeared to be eating this white bread, which was for the nobles, I guess, only, or the leaders, or the pharaohs, etc. And they would have all these wives and everything, and breed. They would breed with certain people. But the white bread, they called it what then is it? And then they started to feed the Hebrews got involved, and they started eating it. And we know Hebrews sort of changed into the Jews or whatever. You know, I'm skipping through a lot, I know, but it's more about this monatomic gold, because it was pure alchemy, and so it was basically like taking a gold bar and turning it into white powder with basically no weight to it. It almost had said to have a negative weight, which is basically impossible for matter, right? So it had to do with the superconductor and the way that they did it with alchemy, or the way that they made it, and it would magnetically charge the people that ate it. And so I was starting to wonder, well, could this make your skin go white? And we saw these Egyptian pharaohs with white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes.
Did they eat it for that reason?
I don't know. That's why I'm like, is that what made people's skin go white? Was this, what then is it?
Right.
The white bread.
Yeah. I mean, I have heard, like, Nigel lives in China. He says that there's all sorts of different, it sounds horrible, doesn't it? Because we're humans, but everybody's different shades there.
Yeah. Well, at a certain point, we even have different kinds of blood, but like we're all human. And so we're sentient beings, whether we come from a race that started earlier or later or whatever, we still more or less have the same job as a human being, I would think, at that level. So that's why I don't even really talk that much about the black side. I don't get too much into that. I've looked into some Moors and Maoris and all that, but I'm not black. So people are just going to, have to accept that I'm white and I'm looking at my own culture. Right? If I want to pick my own culture apart, then I think I have the right to do that anyway.
Yeah, because it's all political, isn't it? And I'm a bit worried about what I say as well, because I don't want to upset anybody.
Right. But you want to look.
But we just want to find the truth. And, the truth is different to what we've been told.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it's all beginning to come out now, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So about the Aryans, if we're talking about Aryans.
Yeah, we're talking about Aryans.
When we look at the zodiac and we see our days of the week. The 7 days of the week are based off planets. Those are Roman. They were, again, you're back into Rome and the Semitic. It was polytheistic, so there's multiple gods, but that changed into Christianity. We call that proto-Christianity. But the Aryans, Christianity started at zero with the age of Pisces, more or less, and before that, the Aryans ruled the age of Aries. So now we're back into this Aryans, and we know what they sort of looked like with their thick beards and the Mesopotamian style, and they were all where the Iran is now Aryan, land of Aryans, and the Persian Empire were Aryans, and they migrated down south into the Vedic period that we know of in India, and they had Aryans all through India, etc., etc. And so there's no reason why these Aryans didn't just go up through Russia and through Tartarian and the Bavarians too, through Germany.
Do you believe that some water thing has happened, and so maybe the lands were a bit more joined then, so it was easier to travel then? We think, there's all this water, and how did they do it?
That's possible. This is all beyond now, I suppose, when you're getting into, I'm just doing the culture right now. So did they do anything with it? See, I sent you those pictures. Do you have any of those?
Well, I'm using them now on the video.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can look at some of them. Those are from all over the world. Maybe later, different time periods, but that whole horse idea comes out of this Aryan race from the Middle East, and you can see it in how the First Nations in America look very similar to the Hussars in Poland. And they have the feathers in the back, and then
the Indians. You mean the native people?
Yeah. But even like the Russians or Canadians have Mounties now, and that's all British. But they're these horse soldiers, and they tie their little horse manes.
Well, those feathers on their backs. I mean, when you look at them, the first thing that goes through your mind is Indians.
Yeah, but you can see there's one of a First Nations man with his headdress on, and how it flows back, and it's got a symbol there on the side. But then if you look at an ancient Egyptian horse and chariot with a pharaoh in it, they have, like, the horse has that on them. It's like the same sort of flowing thing that they had with feathers and stuff. And in a sense, that shows me that the First Nations culture is that old. that's where they got it from. And I hate to say this for First Nations because they might want to argue this, but their culture is not just belonging to them. We see it in Japan, we see it in Poland, we see it in Russia. You know what I mean? It's all over the world, but nobody really notices because it's so old. And it's changed.
And don't forget, they don't want us to know this. They don't really, although it's there,
right.
You've got to really hunt for this, haven't you? You've got to really hunt for it all. And but they don't really want us knowing about it, so they don't lie because it's there. But if you don't hit it, you're not going to find it, are you?
Yeah, and now we have borders, and the borders are all changed, and so we don't even call these places the same thing anymore. We don't call Aryans Aryans; we call them Proto-Indo-Europeans. So if you go and look for information and something says Proto-Indo-European, you don't really clue in that means Aryan. Those were the people that.
Yeah, we just all want the truth, don't we? We want to know where we've come from, really. There's just a big blank, really, because there just is.
Well, and that's going to change again probably now because we're starting another new age.
Yes, I was reading about that. Even with Richard III, the people had the Black Plague? They had that, and they were all stuck in their houses. And you're thinking, God, they weren't doing it to them then, were they?
They probably
They had the same thing. Yeah. And basically, we're still in the same era as then.
Yeah.
What they call us.
Something to do with alchemy. It really might. When I looked at that last big explosion in Beirut that ripped through all those buildings and everything, it just totally looked like some sort of alchemic process where they were burning something that was releasing a chemical, and then you could see another type of smoke start to go in it, and then they shot what looks like firecrackers into it, and so the two chemicals mix, and then you get this accelerant or whatever, and boom, you get your huge explosion. It just looked like alchemy to me again, which comes out of this Aryan age of that we now call a conspiracy theory. We say it's nothing. Oh, alchemy is a pseudoscience, we call it. But that's what they use. That's what 9/11 was too. Was some sort of alchemic process.
So, just asking, what made you get into this then, Jeff?
All kinds of things, really. Like I said, I could even go back as far as that Beatles stuff that I was talking to you about.
And we were originally going to be doing a video on Paul McCartney and the Beatles.
Touch on that briefly. Yeah, the reason why I got into that when I was 10 years old, something like that, when I found an article in the newspaper about it, and how the Beatles had cocked up this big story, and nobody knew if he was dead or not. There was rumors that somebody from Peterborough, Ontario, had replaced him. And there's a whole full-page article basically on all these details about it. So I still have it. I found it inside my album. So I could do a whole hour-long talk.
We can save that we'll save that for another day. But I do want to do that one, especially as you know so much. Could I just ask you something? Yeah. When you said that he was dressed in red and it was the Tsar of Russia, which one were you talking about?
There was a guy on a black horse. One man on a black horse.
What, with another man standing next to him?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be the Tsar of Russia?
Yeah.
Which Tsar?
I think it was a Nicholas picture.
But he doesn't. But he looks like he's much earlier. He's got like a 1700s hat on.
Well, it just looks British to me.
Right. But that's got to be older than the Tsar of Russia because the hats are much older. They're like 1700s.
You're right, and I did not check actually the date. I didn't check the period on that. I got that one recently. And dating things is definitely important, but you can. Don't
you also find it really bizarre that, do you know what the biggest empire was? It was the British Empire. Can you believe it? This little country that we are, we had the biggest empire, and it didn't actually finish until the 1930s.
Don't you think it's all basically just Rome, and they keep telling us that we don't know what happened to Rome, why it dissolved, but it's basically.
Well, they said that the Roman Empire on my video earlier on I think it was with Amy. It might have been actually tonight's one. I've done so many lately, I can't remember. But the downfall of the Roman Empire happened from the 5th century on, so that by the time it's been in decline. But how can that be if you feel that it's still here?
Because the Holy Roman Empire is the Catholic Church.
Hmm.
And we don't put two and two together. We don't put that together, right? So as the Crusades took place in the name of the Holy Roman Empire, it may have not been, it was the English doing it, but it was still in the name of the Holy Roman Empire. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we just say, no, it was the Crusades, it was the English, blah, 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 the kings and all. We never mention Holy Roman Empire. But
So what do you make about when people say, like, people were sending me pictures the other day to say that Scotland was Jerusalem, and it goes on like that, and actually, do you think that, because some people say they had all that in every country, or do you think that they've lied about, because, you know, if you look at, Nigel found out in a Mason book, basically America was Egypt. That's where the real Egypt is.
Well, if we're talking about geographical locations, those stay in place, but then they move names and name them the same thing. So there's a Memphis in the United States of America, correct? Memphis in the USA?
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a plane, too, called the Memphis Belle, which is a famous plane that I believe it dropped one of the first nuclear bombs, I believe. But you know what Memphis is? It's a place in Egypt where pharaohs normally lived for thousands of years. That's what Memphis is.
Right.
So, but there's two, and we recognize the second one more than we think the second one is the primary one, but the one in Egypt was the first one.
Right.
That's the primary one. So that's what they do. They change things, and we look at the ones in the 20th century as being the primary ones, and yet we've changed it already 3-4 times to become this. We just marginalized it all and changed it. That's why we don't understand what it is. I was looking at another one because I have a friend that's Korean, and you say there's a formal thank you that you can say in Korean. That's kumawayo. And then, but something came up with somebody in Wyoming, and I was like, Wyoming? But that's Wyo, kumawayo, and then there's Wyoming. Is that like some kind of connection to an Asian language in the United States for Wyoming? It just kind of blew my mind. I was like, wait a second, Wyoming.
Yeah, and there's no connection, is there, to these things, which is a bit annoying, really.
There is, obviously. Yeah. There has to be.
Yeah, not that they're telling us. I mean, they're not telling us.
Well, we know York is English, and there's New York in the USA.
Well, do you know what I found out today? When Richard III was on the throne, they didn't speak English. They spoke French here.
Sure.
Only the kings. Oh, sorry. Let's just check. Only the kings spoke English, but everybody else spoke French. How does that happen? We weren't run by France.
This was just culture, right? This was the way it went, sort of thing. The measurement of a foot, it was all imperial, about the empire, and it was a measurement of the king's foot. And then every time the king died, we had to either find a king with the same size foot or change the measurement. Right? So that's why we came up with other ways of doing it.
So how did you get onto the Aryan part then?
It was probably Robert Zephyr that really kind of opened my eyes to that. The anthropologist, he's a professor, he's a professional anthropologist anyway, and he connects Aryans a lot to different things, Germany as well, and then I usually just go and study other things. I always check the Wikipedia page on things that I'm looking for, just for the official story. And
his story, yeah. I do as well. Because that's all you've got, isn't it? I mean, I don't think it's that bad that, you know, if you just want information, but you never know how much of it's real, so how much they've covered up, that's the annoying part.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes they even change in front of you. One will say one thing, you know, like he puts little bars up and it says, who was the best king of England? Who did it? And you go through them, and the top one says one thing, and the fourth one down says something else. So they don't even cross-check to make sure they've got the right information, to be honest.
It's definitely biased, too. They mention conspiracy theories a lot. If something if there's a rumor to it, then they'll label it a conspiracy theory and just basically trash it, right? Which is nonsense. And there's things, again, that they don't even bother to mention about people that, you know, should be mentioned and stuff. I don't know.
So this bit about the Aryans, what is it you want to say about them then? Because obviously so many of us are into Tartaria and all that kind of
we
stuff.
have
And
to.
I actually find it hard where that fits in, because very quickly before you get onto the Aryan bit, if England had an empire and Russia has an empire, and then there's the Moguls, and then there's there's other people, and then you've got, like, how does this all work? You've got the
Well,
Barbary ships taking people. How does that work when we're ruling the world? And then that's got to be Tartaria. And I actually think it's the War of the Roses is where everything changed. And what it is
wow.
we know it as the Red Dragon and the White Dragon, but actually they're griffins, and that's part of Tartaria. So I don't know if I'm going to find anything, but I thought, well, I'm going to go and try and have a look and work it out, because it's such a confusing period of time.
There is one thing that we can do, I think, that I like to do. It's a little bit tricky, but heraldry is a language. I've told you about this before, and those symbols in heraldry with the coat of arms and all that. Well, that's what the nobles use for their slavery and for the rankings and all that. And so
they're very organised then, weren't they? You don't expect them to be so organised. I sent you the one of uniforms.
No,
I don't know if I believe the
idea.
uniform. I'm not sure if I believe the uniform one. It's a bit like getting Action Man, and he's got all these clothes, and they just stick those pictures up, and then they tell us that that's the history. But I mean, they were so organised.
The tinctures and the roundel is another one, and then you can go back into the Aryan Age 2,000 years ago, and it was different heraldry. It was all different, but it was still heraldry in a sense. They didn't even have colors at one point. They just used like different shades of lines and in different directions to show color, and people knew what it meant.
Okay, these pictures that you sent me, right? Because obviously I'm putting up the picture. I'm whizzing through the pictures that you sent me. So are Indians Aryans then?
Some of them, yeah. I mean, India is an interesting one because you'll get into a lot of arguments about Sanskrit. And Indian religions like Hindu and what was Jainism those are Aryan Age religions. Those were around much longer than Christianity, and Christians don't want to admit that, right? Oh no, everything started when Christianity started, and Indians are like, well, no, no, our religion was around thousands of years before yours. Like, what are you talking about, right?
Right.
And they're right. They're right. Unfortunately, it basically puts Christians to bed because Jainism was around in 3,000, 4,000 BC, so that's like 6,000 years, 5,000 years ago. And Christianity has only been around for 2.
Or so even less than that, because we watched this hangout where they said that nothing was written down until the 1100s, and it all happened from the 1100s. So they've lied. They've added another 1,000 years on. So that might not be in the right time, right space, right anything.
I don't agree that they could have changed time, I suppose, but it's so difficult to do because they still use the zodiac, and that's how they time all the ages and everything and the dates, and so they'd be screwing themselves up if they did that. I just don't see them. They can alter history and what happened, but I think changing the time frames, that would screw everything up.
Well, I think it's a bit like there's 500 balls in the thing, and they're all in together, and you've got to go in there, and they're all numbered, and you've got to find the numbers and put it all into the right, and we haven't done that, really. They've just shoved this stuff out. I mean, imagine now, after all these years, that there's a lot. Now they're showing us pictures that the royalty and the noblemen were much darker skinned.
There's something going on with genealogy because, again, with heraldry, you see bloodlines, and they show us, the bloodlines are the kings, and the kings, they, so that they don't have to do anything. They would have keep their children all in the family or with other royals from other empires, but there's always a main empire over the top, and you can see that in the heraldry again with the colors and the tinctures, and it all relates into heavenly bodies with colors and stuff, and planets again. So even though we appear to have multiple empires, there's still going to be one above all the other ones at any given time, at all given times, I would think. So you could be a king, but you're a king of your own land with a king above you that governs you still, which a lot of people don't understand.
I think that's what was happening in America. Do you remember when we did the bit when I showed the map and there's kingdoms? And then there was loads of kings here. Each county had a king. Originally. Yeah. Well, that's what they say. Like say, with Merlin and all that. What's that? Merlin and
The Knights of the Round Table.
all that back there. Yeah,
King Arthur. Yeah.
King Arthur. So that's the
I'm
fifth.
not
I think
entirely
that's the
sure if that
fifth
actually.
century. He was around in the
Yeah.
fifth century. Well, so they say. So
Yeah.
there was kingdoms.
Oh yeah, all kinds of kingdoms. Well, the United Kingdom is still around. It's UK.
Mm.
I've asked that question before though, because Israel was a kingdom, which is now a state. So people are telling me, "Oh, Israel has only been a state since 1960." I'm like, "Yeah, but it was a kingdom for thousands of years before that. So was India. So they just marginalized it by putting a flag on it and with heraldry, and said, now you have to abide by these laws."
Mm.
That's all they did with heraldry, basically, and made it a state instead of a kingdom.
Okay, I just want to ask you this. So where's the relevance of the Aryan then?
Because it was an entire age of 2,000 years that was ruled by them, their culture, their religions, and we see them transferred into First Nations in America, Indians in America, Polish, Chinese, British. Basically, it's all like if you go back far enough, you're going to run into your culture being Aryan. So in some way, shape, or form. You just have to figure out when it started for you. But it started when you were born, if you're alive now. But for your own culture, because some of them, there were human beings that were living in South America or wherever, and were basically, in a sense, converted, like the British did with the Crusades. Right? And so there was a period of time where Aryans were converting people or they were killing you. And they were basically just splitting everything up with borders and saying, now when you're done, you're going to go and fight them. And we're going to control, and they're going to fight you. Because that's Aryan culture.
Where do you think it all fits in? Because there are different buildings, there's all sorts of different things, but there's one thing that we all have. We all have the pillar buildings. They're all over everywhere. We all have pyramids. So what does that mean then? If we must have been ruled by the same one person, like one kingdom.
Well, you can see on a lot of the Aryan Age pillars, they have the ram's horns on top. In Roman and Greek and stuff, if you look on the tops of those pillars, if you see those little spirals on either side, those are ram's horns normally, and that will show you that those pillars were made before 0, anyway, in BC, because they're depicting that sort of ram type of.
Do you think that's what they've done with like the Bible? Yeah. They made it look like BC, so it's so old and so long ago when it isn't, and they've stuck everything that we were is in the BC.
They changed BC. They said BC was this, basically in the book. It's the Bible, But, everything that happened in BC was just the Bible, what the Bible says, and that's just not true. You're right. You hit the nail on the head there, basically. And the Indian religions will prove that, right? And so will a lot of other things. So will a lot of other cultures. And so now Christianity keeps converting everyone, and the rest is history. Basically, now Western cultures everywhere, we call it Western culture, and we think of that as American because it's in the West. No, that is Christianity, is Western culture.
What do you make of America being Egypt?
It's even Memphis. Like I said, Memphis is in America. It's just a spiritual connection because they're all Aryans, and that probably has something to do with white bread.
Yes, that's quite crazy. That is.
Oh yeah, but it's all this culture of all chemical spirituality, and there's more truth that comes out of religion, because Egypt was basically the first religion. They didn't even have a word for religion, and heraldry is basically almost read like hieroglyphics in a sense, where it's just symbols. And so a lot of the spirituality got marginalized, I think, in Egypt, although they did a lot of discovery on that type of stuff too, a lot of alchemical processes.
How does that work when you've got all these, like England is speaking French and you've got the royalty speaking English? How would it have worked? They wouldn't have been able to have spoken to the people properly. They'd all had to speak to them in French.
Yeah, language is really, it's a mystery to me still. And the Bible tries to explain it with this Babylon theory. And Babylon could have been a real place, a real empire. Whether or not the tower had anything to do with all, it could be just a play on words, Babylon. But language is our voice, it's our power. And so it's hard to say if it's good or bad. Can you limit yourself with a language? Can you expand your
Do you think this is
knowledge
the
just by
travesty of
changing the
lying
language?
to us about our history, though? Because instead of
Yeah.
just saying, we're all Aryans, they can't do
Right.
that.
Right, and we have I looked on a thing in Canada, and they said on the government website, they said, we can have this sent to you in 138 different languages. And I was like, what? We have that many? Why would you even, can't we come up with something a little bit better? But do we need to? Maybe it's better that we don't, too. I don't know.
Well,
That's
the national language now is English, isn't it?
Yeah, we have two here in Canada. We have French and English.
Do a lot of people in Canada speak French?
In Quebec, they do.
Don't you think that's really weird that we were speaking French here, the French in Canada? It sounds like France might have ruled everywhere, not us.
Well, a big part of the history that we are told involves the French fighting the English at the beginning of Confederation and all that, and fighting. But they talk about they also slaughtered like a few 100 million natives at the same time. And then at the end, the Union Army came up after they were done in the U.S. And helped the British Crown defeat the French anyway. And then they all agreed to give the French land and all that anyway because they're all on the same side. So
We're looking at Henry VI, right? Henry VI. Can't remember who his father is now. He must have been Henry V. He won France and was going to be king of France, and he died. Well, they said a pain. Although he had an illness and he died, it was a painless death. That doesn't sound right, does it? But he died just before he could have been king. And then his son comes to power and he's going, no, I want peace. But basically, when Henry VI came, he was a baby. I mean, I don't know how a baby's supposed to rule the country. So it was noblemen and all those people that did it. And then they blamed Henry VI for everything and said what a terrible king he was. But he wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the whole concept.
He was the only king that was actually going to be crowned king of France. English, that is. Yet the French were here ruling us at times. In the War of the Roses, they were here and they were kind of king. And then we married, like, they married into the French for political reasons and stuff.
And they used to sleep with each other and they have messed up kids and all that. And their kids would have 3 eyes or whatever. They'd have defects, whatever. What do you do? I don't know how far we have to go back. I just keep going further back to find out where we all come from. Because this archon idea of kingship is basically just slavery. That's all it is. It's all bloodlines, and I'm better than you because I have this blood and you don't.
Yes, everything seems to be about slavery, doesn't it? We've never been free.
And they normalize it. Yeah, and they say, "Oh, see, it's good because we give you these things. You get all this stuff," and everybody goes, "Yeah, okay." It's like this. It's like the just in case spell.
So why have they lied then?
It's just foolery in a sense. It's this low-level brain function, egotistical. They're manipulating the human condition with words and value, and they substitute things like profit and make things go backwards, and people believe it with their beliefs. Oh no, that's not the right way. It goes the opposite way, and people go, oh yeah, really? And they go, see, you just made money. Oh yeah, okay, good. That's called profit. Oh, there we go. So now you think you're doing it the right way, and you just got suckered into doing it backwards.
Yeah.
But no, I get money. But yeah, but see, where do you get your money? Are you stealing it? Do you need it? Can we do it any better way? Are you getting value out of it? Or is profit all your only concern? Because I still can, when do we combine or connect profit, the word, and money to prophecy or the profits of religion? Is it a currency? Is money a currency? Is it actual energy? Or is it just this made up thing that we call currency and it's not really energy at all?
Well, it just seems obvious to me that they've totally lied to us.
All the time.
But I do know that, whoever wins writes the history.
Yeah, I guess, unfortunately. And that's why they split it up. In Canada, at the beginning of Canada, we had Upper and Lower Canada. There was an Upper and Lower Egypt. There was They're always, it always has to be two sides. So they come in where there's everything's fine, and they come in and they say, all right, we're going to split it in two. You go this way, you go that way, you fight them, you fight them. One's red, one's blue. You can't have both. So you guys fight it out, and then we'll come in and we'll tell you which one wins. So they win no matter what, and they get to be at the top. That there's your triangle, your pyramid, too. So there's all kinds of ways of looking at value of how this works. But yeah, this pyramid scheme, it's like a pyramid scheme. Why the bottom is so always the largest? There's the most people at the bottom, and the top is the 1%. So and we fall for it. We just fall for it. We agree to it. Compliance is a huge thing right now. If you're complying to by wearing a mask, then you're complying to slavery, and you're just telling yourself that it's something else. You're going on your beliefs. It's not slavery, your belief is. Well, but it is still. Even if it's not for you, you don't feel like it is, it still is.
It is.
Yeah, because we think of as slavery as 1935 in the United States of America, when the plantation owners did what they did to the black people. So if that's not happening now, then it's not slavery.
Well, that's the really sad bit, is that I just feel that that even in America there must have been a lot more darker skinned people, and they were there kind of first, and we're probably the settlers. Because whatever they did, we've noticed that whatever they've done, whatever everybody else has called themselves, we have as well. It's actually crazy. It's all crazy.
That's an interesting point you bring up, though, because I'm pretty sure that, through the Americas, being South America, through Mexico even, and what we call First Nations, or the Indians there, they weren't black, right? There was a slave trade as well that the Catholic Church had going on from Spain or Europe, which is, Europe, by the way, is the name of a goddess, which I found out, and I can't remember which one now. But
Really?
yeah, so it's like the stuff that we're told is just, we could even find stuff out. There's information out there that we just don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's there. You've got to,
yeah.
Even on a video, because of the way that YouTube have done things and the way that they're covering up everything up and even changing it under our noses, you've got to put exact words in to find it. If you don't, you might never find it, even on the internet.
Yeah.
It's most bizarre. Yeah. It's there, but somehow you've got to hunt for it.
Yeah, and I found one day that New Guinea, or Australia, was run by Germans, and I saw the picture of how they split Australia up to an east and a west. One was New Holland, run by the Dutch, ruled by the Dutch, and the other side was, I forget what it was called. But then I couldn't find it again. And luckily enough, I had saved it, but every time I looked for New Guinea, I always got the island of New Guinea, which exists now. But way back when, New Guinea was the entire island of Australia, and it was ruled by Germans. And
wow, when was that then?
Yeah, I'd have to look it up again. Sorry, I didn't.
Are we talking of last century or the century before? When are we talking of this? The 1800s, the 1900s?
A long time ago, obviously, before. Well, you'd have to.
So how come it doesn't show up on the maps then in this 1600s? It's just not there.
Well, there's another question that I might be stretching this with, but there's a place called the Gulf of New Guinea, which is way up in Africa, like by Chad, on the sort of southwestern corner where that little hump is, and it's called the Gulf of New Guinea. But yet New Guinea and Australia are way down far on the eastern side. So I wonder if somehow, if ever that piece of land split off from the bottom half of Africa and somehow got over there. I can't see that happening really, but I don't know why they would name the Gulf of New Guinea so far away from where New Guinea is.
I don't know, like my son's moved to Australia, and where we are, Brighton's quite a big town, and obviously I love it because there's so much history with the chain pier in the early 1800s, and first aquarium, and the piers, and the train in the sea. There's masses of history, and I grew up there as a child. My grandparents still live there, and my dad's parents lived in Wooding Dean, which is a small town the other side of Brighton. But But where he lives in Australia now, it's called there's Brighton and Hove.
Mm.
But really, they're from here. That's the English connection, and obviously they're here. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe someone from New Guinea went over there and this is my part of Australia, and we're calling it New Guinea.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go into it more. Like that's the thing. It all takes so long to really look at
we're
the
only
history.
all we are. We're not historians. We're not here to make money. We're just average human beings trying to work it out. And I appreciate that you spend your time doing it and sharing your information, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you, Jeff.
Well, if I get any wrong, I'll ask for forgiveness and try and correct myself. How about that? That's the deal.
You said you've been talking all day today, so what were you doing today then? Trying to explain it to people.
I called our premier office and
did you?
To one of his assistants. Yeah, and I believe I called the Ontario Provincial Police as well today. I had two good conversations with two ladies, and just kind of I just talk about things. And why are we doing this? Did you know that we could actually just basically not follow your authority because you're basically marginalizing people into their own slavery? Like they have to hear these words. I know they're hard words to hear, but and they're probably going to deny it anyway, say, oh, that's ridiculous. But at least somebody's now told them that, hello, I see this as slavery. Did you know that? Did you know that people think that you're taking part in that? And see what they say, without going.
I'm not being horrible, Jeff, but a lot of us are hoping that things will collapse because what we've been put in is disgusting and they all need to go to prison.
I know.
All of
them.
See,
I don't think it's going to do that on its own. That's the problem. We have to do something, and somebody has to do something, but it seems like it's all the people at the bottom that are the only ones that are really worried about it, and they either can't or somehow we can't organize because the people at the top won't let us. We're all marginalized. We're the minority, or it's just they control people's beliefs. They control the narrative too, so people believe that it's fine, it's normal. I was watching movies again the other day and people with masks on, and it's been like this for a while. So
I was really shocked to see it in I was really shocked to see it in the history today when they said with the plague and everybody had to stay at home and all that, and I'm thinking, well, that was what, the 1500s? And we're still doing the same things today.
Which one? The Black Plague? I think was a lot earlier than 1500s, but I could be wrong.
Whichever one it was, it's in my video. Sorry, I've been doing so much I can't remember now.
There's different ones, I know. But the Black Plague, if you got the Black Plague, you were expected to die in 8 days.
It wasn't that one, but it's plagues. They just made people stay at home, and I'm thinking, well, what's the difference today? They told us that, you know what they've told us, and we're all stuck in our houses.
Mm-hmm. But there's never any cure, right? People believe that it's just going to go away, and all we have to do is get everybody to wear a mask on their face, and the magic fairy will come along, and the virus will go away. The mask fairy will come down and make the virus go away if everybody wears a mask and prays to the fairy god of the masks. It's like that's what it is. It's a religious belief. It's just nonsense, but they believe it. Even nurses. I went by the hospital a couple of days ago just to see because the media was saying again St. Joseph's was a terror zone and it was busy and they had no room, and I'm like, I go by there all the time. It looks dead, so I went in. Excuse me. I went in without a mask on, of course, and they tried to say, "Oh, sir, you have to put this on." I said, "No, I don't. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go in and have a look around." "Oh, sir." I'm like, "No, it's okay. I'm fine. Thank you. I'm not sick. I'm just going to go in." And so I went in, looked around.
Did you film it?
All came over. Huh?
Did you film it?
No, because I don't like to film people because that just makes it worse. That's a whole level of
Because I saw one today where someone went in and went, "Look!" He just walked straight in and he was going, "Look, there's nobody here. There's nobody here."
Right. I bring my camera so if anybody gets aggressive or whatever, then you can film. But I just went in to go and look. I wanted to see for myself if it was busy or not. and see what happened. Let people know that, hello, we are in here, we're looking, so don't tell me that you're so busy and act like a big hero because there's nobody here, right? And I'll tell them flat out, and she'll stand there, look at me, and I'll go, don't give me your glare either. There's nobody here, we know, right? I'm here, you're here, there's nobody else here. You're wearing a mask for no reason.
1 second, sorry, Jeff. Let me get rid of these. Oh, that's it. It's gone now. There was a couple of messages come up, and as I got rid of another one came in, but anyway, it's gone
That's
now.
okay.
Always
I've
got
been
two
talking
messages.
for a while anyway now, so.
Thought I got rid of the messages, but anyway. So what does Aryan mean then, by the way?
That is a good question. You know, all you have to do to find out is look up the etymology. And it depends on how it's spelled, too, because I think it may have been spelled different ways in different time periods. So you have to confirm that. But again, Proto-Indo-European is the word that is the term that we use now for Aryan. So you'd have to be careful because they're hiding it, right? It'll probably be a good look. I'll look that up for the next talk. What does Aryan mean?
What does it mean for you then? Because obviously it's one of your subjects, isn't it?
I don't even want to get into that. If I don't know what it is, I'm going to look it up soon. I just don't have my computer open right now. I can go look it up now.
Do you want me to look it up?
It's up to you, whatever. You know, you're asking me what Aryan means, and that is the way to do it, is what I'm saying.
1 second then. Just let me go and get my iPad. Just 2 seconds.
Here, I'll do it too.
It's just in my bedroom. Hang on, 2 seconds.
Pause for station identification.
Right, so it didn't charge my iPad up, which is a bit annoying. So where am I looking then?
Here, I'll look it up. I got it.
All right, you do it then.
I spelled it with a Y.
There's nothing like live research, is there?
What it has to do, the word Caucasian is in there. German philosopher Max Mueller popularized the word in his writings Comparative Linguistics, recommending it as the name Indo-European, Germanic, Caucasian, or Japhetic. Japhetic, perhaps? Japhetic. You know, it's like a term from, with a Y anyway, it says 1600.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Aryans, Ayrins, Arins, and Airguns.
Yeah. So it's a tough one to answer. And then if you look at how it's spelled with a Y, it connects all these other things like Iran.
Yeah, it talks about Iranians here.
Hindu.
Yeah.
Hindus I know argue that. I know they argue it all the time quite profusely. There's the Vedic period as well, which involves Aryans in India. So there's lots of recorded history on it. It just takes time to go through it and understand it. This is one of my favorite tools now, is this etymology dictionary, though, because it shows you, it makes you smart. Gives you meanings of things so you can use the words properly and understand what it is you're saying.
No, I'm just looking up on my iPad, but it's a bit difficult because I'm not quite sure what I'm looking up at the moment. So I've left it to you. So have we just been basically Aryans? Is that it, or do you think there's been other races here?
No, I think there's other races for sure. A black-skinned person or even darker-skinned South American, sort of what we call now, I don't think they were originally an Aryan race. I think Aryans came out of the Middle East, and they populated Europe, basically.
Is this Prussia or Iran?
Yeah, both. Both Aryans.
So basically, we're Middle Eastern, really.
White people, I would expect. Yeah, well, Christianity is for sure. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Semitic.
Right.
Russians are Middle Eastern, British are Middle Eastern, Americans, so Canadians would be, but I can't say that the First Nations are. A lot of the native populations are darker skinned normally, and I would say that they were converted with culture, not, without their consent. A lot of times without their knowledge even. A lot of times actually it is with their consent, and so I can't say that it's bad, because how do they gain consent is the question now. We've built things as humans. We have this civilization, right? We know we are more civilized because when people first started to populate America, yeah, there was a lot of that Western, again, the plains, and just nobody had anything. Nobody had food, and you had to live off the land.
The Middle Ages wasn't a very nice time, by the way. It was a very poor. It said very hard, and you didn't live long. That's what it said, because they didn't have any food or anything.
Right. Well, they must have. It's just, I wonder again if that's just marginalized because they were always fighting.
Well, right? So they say. We don't know if that's true, do we? We don't know if we were really fighting, because if we were a mixture of people here, then we all live together. So this thing about racism is something that was done in the 1900s. I think it's disgusting.
No, I think when we look at heraldry, that shows me that we've been marginalizing people into slavery for thousands of years.
Oh, yeah. What I'm saying is with the black people, what they did to them and said that, you can't sit on buses and all that. They made that up then.
Well, black people were moving around, migrating just as much as white people, probably more so, and olive-skinned and all different kinds of people. That's the thing. Like this whole out of Africa scenario of the human race has also scientifically been debunked. It's impossible, right? So quantum theories show us that if a human race is going to populate a certain part, then that will be going on everywhere in the world according to what that environment allows, in a sense, for life.
The very sad bit for me is, though, that the First and Second World War was to how they destroyed it. They destroyed Rome, basically.
Well, Rome, they let it go. They destroyed it on their own. They always destroy their own stuff.
All those buildings, all those Tartaria buildings, they destroyed them all. Yeah. Well, not all of them, but they destroyed most of them. So it's even harder for us to piece it all together.
Yeah, they bombed a whole bunch in the war, too.
Well, that's what wars are about. They're not really fighting each other. They're destroying buildings and taking the children. That's two of the things. They probably put half a dozen other things in there that they can sort out as well. And there obviously is other reasons. But those are two of the ones they were doing.
Making weapons. Making them now. That's a big part of it because it's a moneymaker, so they want the money. So they tell us these stories about how we have to fight each other and who's going to be our next enemy, basically simply so they can make money making weapons and kill people.
That's exactly what they do. They plan the next enemy for us, put it all over the television.
Yeah, because they've already sold it. Believe you me, they're getting ready for the next war now, I would expect. I wouldn't doubt to see it against aliens, too. They've got some technology, 10 years, 15, 20 years, we'll start to see, see more UFO spottings, and then all of a sudden one day there will be an attack, oh my God, and we'll be under attack by this invisible enemy called the aliens.
Excuse me. Other people think that as well.
And everybody will have to go to war.
Other people think that as well.
Yeah, $70 billion in January of 2019, the Canadian government gave to Lockheed Martin and Irving Oil to build 16 warships. A fleet of 16 warships.
For what?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. I've been asking people that for 2 years, and people go, I don't know. What do I know? I don't care. I'm like, you don't care.
Did you know that in the 1800s, Russia had Alaska, and they sold it back to America for something like £7 million.
Okay, yeah, I think I had heard something about that.
That's just incredible, isn't it?
What are you gonna do? I don't know. Yeah, I've been also hearing some stuff from Robert about these Nazi, this big, huge Nazi base that was built during the war in the Antarctica. And it's all underground. And the Americans found out about it, but of course they're still on both sides, right? So they sent a big force over and had a war in the Antarctica.
Oh, is that what Admiral Byrd was about?
No, this was more recent. This was the World War II. Near the end of World War II. But like that whole
but he could have been trying to find it or get in there.
Well, maybe, yeah. But
That's if
was
he
all
went and he
really.
was real, because when I look at the videos, all it is they've made the videos for you. They were going, oh, look, they're feeding the doggies. Oh, they're playing with the doggies. It's the most
Right.
ridiculous thing ever. It's all been made for us.
Okay, well, yeah, in that sense, it would have been admirable if first found something and then Hitler found it later and expanded on it. But apparently that base is still there. It's it's probably even bigger now. And they do all kinds of weird research on spaceships.
Because they were supposed to have sub whatever it was weather down there originally, which means there's probably pyramids there and everything.
Yeah, possibly.
And it's hard to tell because you don't really know how big Antarctica is.
No, we don't have. Pyramids are still a mystery. What are they there for?
I wondered whether they're a throwback from how they made us. Maybe they helped to make oxygen. I know that I talk to people who are really into it, and they think that they're energy things. They're doing things. Whether they were, I don't know. It's probably to do with water and. Well, it is to do with water, but they were doing other things with them. So that, what I've just said, goes totally against it. But it just reminds me of the film Total Recall, when Arnie gets there and he's got to put those oxygen machines on. That's what his aim is, to get there and put the oxygen machines on so that they can breathe. And, the aliens put a whole system in. And then he gets, obviously, Mars then has air on it. But I'm just wondering whether... it's a bit like, let's destroy it all, or they'll never work it out. But actually, that's what's happening, is that we are, and we suddenly think, like, for me, there's a pyramid about an hour away from me, and there's two, actually. There's Merlin's Mound, and there's Silbury Hill, and there's more. There's a couple more around there. And they're just not mentioned. And what were they doing? They've got rooms in the bottom of them.
You're right. What are they doing? There's something going on, and we don't know what it is, and they're not telling us. It's undisclosed.
But those things do have energy things on them, and they're still emitting. But they're just obviously it's not connecting. And then of course we had the star forts. Someone was I can't remember who was telling me now, but I think it was Nigel. They were 600 miles apart. They knew what they were doing, and they put each star fort 600 miles away. 600. So they knew what they were doing with those things.
Star forts remind me of something that was happening in the sky. Like it has something to do with the Star Wars. It's like a war.
Well, yeah, because that's where. Yeah, I think that's what they did. That's how they knew where to put them, because they had to do it from the sky.
Yeah, Alan's a good guy. Alan's funny. He's got a lot of knowledge. Unfortunately, Alan's an atheist.
Oh, Alan in our group, you mean?
Sorry, Alan.
You mean Alan in our group?
Yeah, he's got a lot of really good looks and a lot of good...
Alan's lovely. He's a right sweetie, he is.
Yeah, but he got me started on the liquid thing, and everything's made of water. And so I've been contemplating that. And so I saw another thing where a different man was trying to explain how rock is all alive, basically. In a sense, it was very hard for him to explain it, but he was explaining it as tissue. And in a sense, if you looked at rock as possibly like a bone with marrow in it, and a bone, after a human dies, the only thing that's left is bone. So everything else.
Oh, you mean when we're looking at all this rubble, like little bits of rock and that, what you don't realise is that it's other things, like bits of body, bits of this. Because I do know that I was watching a video today that someone sent me, that things can petrify quite easily, even bodies in the ground. As if water's running through, these things petrify.
But it's all cells. It's all liquid, is what I guess what Alan's trying to say, is that if everything's liquid, then we're all just blending in with other liquids, heavier liquids, almost like a B-52, the way it, and we're all locked in a quantum field. So
well, it's even worse than that, isn't it? We're living in a totally electric place. The trees are electric, the sun's electric. Not sure about the moon.
Yes, that's energy.
But everything's electric, which means we shouldn't be able to live here. We should be able to live here. And we've got an electric pulse in our heart and our brain. I mean, what is this? I mean, nobody, as you're walking around, you don't think, oh, I'm living in electricity, but you are.
Right. And so where does that, do we generate? See, if there was a song by Jethro Tull, you remember him? The song called Aqualung?
Yeah, I saw him at Glastonbury.
Yeah, so, I mean, he had a song called Aqualung, and it wasn't really about breathing liquid, but what is it? If our atmosphere, let's say, was a liquid instead, we picture
Well, yeah,
oxygen.
we're breathing in
Yeah.
watered down water.
Well, it's a different type of water because water, has hydrogen molecules mixed combined with the oxygen, the H2O, so two hydrogen, and there's a superconductor in there somewhere holding them together. But the oxygen is also a liquid with oxygen, our atmosphere, but doesn't have two hydrogen molecules. So
I think it
lighter.
has to be a bit damp, doesn't it? Because of our lungs. Like, if there was no water in it, it might be harder for us to breathe. We need that little bit of water in there for some reason for our lungs.
Well, there's oxygen in it anyway. We can breathe oxygen but humans can't breathe hydrogen, and that's why we can't breathe underwater.
But
So
also,
the hydrogen weighs it down.
there used to be more oxygen here, and they're saying when we had a higher level of oxygen, you could run for miles and not feel tired. You can there's just so many things that can happen. You heal quicker. That's why hospitals give more oxygen to people, because you heal quicker.
Right. Yeah, and they don't want that, do they? They don't want us to heal quicker.
No, I must admit, you know, like maybe 10, 15 years ago, you're thinking, oh, hospitals, they look after you. Now you think, well, I don't want to go on a respirator. I don't want that, and I'm not having that, and I'm only going if I'm seriously ill now. That's what I've said to myself. I'm not going anywhere near them.
I know.
You know, what's chemotherapy, mustard gas? So what have they been doing to us for years?
Yeah. And my mom, even though she was a nurse, and my dad too, they came from this sort of generation where they had nothing. And then all of a sudden they were able to have things and all these choices, so they didn't give a crap what they were putting in their body. They really didn't. And my mom's kind of the same way. She's like, oh, well, who cares? If something happens to me, I'll just take some pills for a while and then I'll die.
Yeah, because we've grown up with that, haven't you? Just take a pill, it'll make you feel better.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Take a pill and you die quicker.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're learning, and I think that's we're not going to get into that because we're not talking really about that. But I think that's what the mistake is, because even though they said stay at home, they actually wanted us at the hospitals, and it's not happening. Everybody is staying away.
Yeah, I guess they are, but the media says if you don't go.
Oh yeah, it's cracking. The hospitals are bursting at the seams. No, they're not.
No, but if you don't go and look, you'd believe the media.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, my children believe it, but I've been to the hospitals myself. There was no one there. In the last one we had, there was nobody there, just like people are reporting now. But we have to change the subject. We have to change the subject in a moment because, well, you know what YouTube's like.
Right. All right, I don't know. I guess we can call this one a night too if you want.
Call it what? Call it what?
What?
What did you say?
I don't know. We could call it a night too if you want.
Oh, I say, you've had enough now.
Well, whatever. What else do you want to talk about? I don't know what else.
I thought you were going to tell me a bit more about the Aryans.
Well,
finish off on a bit of the Aryans.
I'm just sort of on this kick that we were all Aryans, and it's right sort of centralized from the Middle East. So our culture is Semitic and Middle Eastern. So I don't want to take it too far with that, beyond and start making assumptions on what else comes from that, because there's always been multiples, and we all, nobody's the same, but not knowing that is missing out of who we are. So if more people were aware of the history from that time period that we have, and that how it relates to us, and we can make decisions better. That's the way I feel anyway, because there's more to it than that, but that's a start, because then we can look at what we're doing, how we say things backwards and stuff. We say things. My mom will tell me that, say words and then turn right around and say that she didn't say that. I'm like,
right.
What? You just said, or my friend Mike, who is on the ball with the truth for the most part. He's, but like he'll go out and protest and wave flags, which I find that a little disturbing, that so many people will wave flags and sing national anthems and say, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee, while they protest the government that is making them slaves. You're waving flags in promotion of that government. and protesting them at the same time.
Yeah, Jeff, that's the one thing. When you wake up, you realise that you can't follow any of that stuff. There's no blue or red flags or them or politics. They're
Not at
all
this
part
point.
of that system we don't really want anymore.
Well, if you want that, that's fine. Again, I don't want to change people's belief systems totally overnight, but you have to combine the two. You have to connect them and understand that when you vote for those people, this is what you're going to get.
Any
You're
one
not
of
gonna
them,
vote them in.
not just the one that
Yeah.
got in, any one of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Once you vote them in, well, they can do whatever they want, and they're going to change your laws and all this stuff. So if you don't care,
Well, you know,
then
I can do that one
don't
for you on
protest.
etymology, because government, obviously that means mind, so it's govern the mind.
Yeah. So you govern your own mind and tell them government is supposed to be run by the people. That's how
Yes,
this
so
empire
that's the bit that
was born.
it's turning round into their god.
Yeah.
Oh, very quickly, you've put in your photographs the picture of the clock. What was that about then?
That was the oldest zodiac clock that's still functional, I guess, or available. So that's a clock based on the zodiac. And why that's kind of weird, it's got the 3 faces on it and everything. But, you know, we don't really even clue in that the clock, like we use digital clocks now and they show us numbers, but everyone used to have clocks with hands on it. And we just kind of assume, well, that's just, you know, the way we made it go around. But it's in relevance to the zodiac again and how everything spins, how the planets and everything move around. So people that, you know, daily horoscopes seem to be coming back, which is kind of dumb because daily horoscopes are a bit of a farce. You can't track daily futures with the zodiac, but we do use it for days of the week and months and ages. And then people, by the time they get out into these 2,000-year ages, they're like, oh, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't make a difference anymore. And
Well,
yet,
if you get
we're
into
going
astrology
right
just
now.
a little bit, then you realise that the stars are always doing things, and those conjuncts or whatever's going on, or when Pluto's lining up with
Planets do, the stars don't.
I can't think which planet it is now.
I think Alan was right on that, and he said that there's a pole star, which is Polaris, which is the North Star. So the stars all revolve around a pole, and the planets move and align and disalign, but the stars don't. They might move a few degrees and such with the tilts, but there's a pole that the stars revolve around. They don't move.
Yeah, so there we are, floating through space, doing Mach 80, going on and on and on, and all the stars stay the same. Anyway, yeah, but what it is, don't you think it's amazing that all that time ago they were using those kind of clocks with astrology? It just seems that these people are far more intelligent than we are.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Another thing I was thinking about too, about the stars and the war on the stars, the Star Wars, and all these star fortresses, etc. One of the things that we do now in like the 20th century that we never did before was light the sky with our skylines of our cities. And so that all that ambient light from all over the world, from all the power at night that we shine with our lights, takes away from what we can see in the sky. And so we can't see all that stuff anymore because before we had electricity, it was always very dark at night over the whole world, so there was no ambient light. So they could see further. They could see more. So that's just a difference in how we perceive things. So we light the sky now. Great. You know, is that another war on the stars? You know, is that the aether? Is that what we want to see at night? Should we not be lighting the do we want to see the stars more? Does that make us more conscious of who we are? I don't know.
Well, it's quite incredible to think that they were using it all that time ago, and, you know, like, it's just, yeah, they were just far more, and they were always looking at the stars. Churches started off as observatories, basically.
Yes.
They were looking at the stars. They were not churches.
No,
and then
they
something
got
else
into
that
the
got me.
culture.
Listen to this. This is just changing the subject a bit, but, you know, Westminster Abbey looks very like the Notre Dame. They're not quite the same. But there are other churches in France. They are all the same as in England. Yet in England, they're the Church of England. And in France, they're Catholic. Yet they're the same churches.
Catholic is, but the church style, I find that we called it Gothic, do we not? These Gothic cathedrals?
Yeah, but how does that work? When you've got the same churches here as in France, but the ones in France are Catholic and the ones here are Church of England. And we already know that in the
They're all Catholic. No, the
1500s,
Church of England is Catholic still.
the Church of no,
Or
it's
is it
supposed to be
Protestant?
it's
I'm
supposed to
not
be
sure.
different. But
Oh, it
but
could be
with
Protestant.
Henry VIII, he changed everything, and that was in the 1500s.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we
He's
still have the
dominating.
same churches, but in different religions.
I know, and that does get confusing again. But that's religion, and so we look at Hindu, and they had Jainism, and then Sikhism popped up in the 20th century, and they're all from India. So it happens with religion; they always just change and they add things so that when people get wise to it, they just change the belief and they say, "Well, it's just a little bit different," and then they can have another branch of that religion.
Because, everybody goes on about, obviously, Jesus, in a sense, to the rest of the religions, is quite a new one. That the Bible. But basically, Henry VIII's an even newer one.
Well, the first Bible, the King James Bible, was put together by that guy Bacon, who was the author of all the Shakespeare stuff. You know that? Yeah, so he wrote it. He assembled it and translated. It had to be translated and interpreted from Hebrew script. So
I don't think that's such a good Bible anymore. You need the proper Hebrew translation, not one of the ones they've done since and changed a lot of the words in it.
It's all just scripture anyway. You can use it if you want to date things and get some period pieces, but it's allegory, and it's basically for beliefs. Again, it's to marginalize people.
Yeah,
that's what I would say. Christianity popped up out of other religions, and there were other religions before that, and they're all control devices to marginalize.
That's what I see. I don't think you need another book to get to yourself. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah, it's all marginalization, and I still think that what some of the old Taurus Age religions talked about the aether, and people still talk about the aether. So maybe the aether, if this concept of the aether has anything to do with the stars, and they revolve around the pole. I mean, maybe there's something there too. I don't know, but we'll never know. It's always going to be.
No, because the stars. I mean, I can't believe that I thought they were millions of light years away. I don't know how I thought that when they're only a couple of miles away, if that.
The problem is we just don't know unless you're going to go up there and look.
Well, then what it is what we're looking at doesn't look very far away. They're not very far away. That's why you can go on an aeroplane and go above them and don't see them. But you can't ever get to them. They're luminaries. You can never get to them. You can't get to the sun and you can't get to the moon. And all that happens is the moment you try to go towards them, they just get further away.
Right.
Yeah. Well, how can that happen? How can that happen?
They don't move. Don't forget, they don't move. You have to have your principles down. They don't move, so they're not gonna move away from you. But you're right. As you get closer, if it's just energy, you might see it differently from far away. And a lot of times for us to see them, there's a reflection of light off it. So there's all these other factors. But we don't know what stars are, because I was always under the impression that they were solid matter, like a planet, like a small planet, like a moon or something, like smaller. But now I think they appear like it's more just like a ball of energy, like it's not solid matter. But it's hard to say because cameras can do different tricky things, or they might not be focusing right with the light. So
yeah, they look like little sort of bright blobs, but actually when you zoom in on your camera, you can see that they're changing colour and...
Well, yeah, but the camera might be doing that on purpose, might be changing the look, just because of the lenses and the way it fixes on light.
But people do say God made it so that, or if you want to look at it that way, God made it so that we didn't know the truth. We're never going to know the truth.
Well, it's not up to God. That's what I keep saying. Everyone thinks, oh, God will tell us and God will touch you and this and that. I don't really think it works like that. I think it's up to us. Like we're men and we're women, and then there's plants and there's animals. And, plants are a sentient being. They're conscious of themselves. Flowers know how to open up when the sun comes out, and they know they have to open so that the bees can come along and all that. But it's almost like they know their role, but they can't ask why. So humans have this capability for holistic intelligence, and we can ask why, and we can answer the question why, but we don't seem to know what our role is as human beings. We think it's just to enjoy life and make money. Right? But plants you don't see, or animals, they seem to have a role that, I don't know if they know what it is, but they know they're self-conscious, they have to eat, and they have to hibernate, and but they don't ask why they do things either. They just kind of roam around and do it. Like they know what their role is. we don't seem to know what our role is. As humans, our job, we all say, well, what's your job? We should all have a base level of understanding of what our basic job is as humans.
To
First.
be a slave, Jeff. To be a slave.
It's like to look after or to protect people.
Yeah, because you are an individual. You go and do your own sort of, activism. And you're a person in your own right. So when you look out, that's how you see it. But a lot of people are in the herd, sheep mode.
Yeah, but they just don't care. They're confused, is what I say. They're in a ball of confusion. Their soul and their spirit and their vessel.
Well, we did a bit about that. I don't know if you watched it with Nigel. Basically, there was the giants and the Elohim and all that kind of stuff. They were can't think of the word now, divine connection to God. And then they made Adam and Eve to be their slaves. But they weren't very nice people and they got kicked out. But the mask-wearing people are them. And then you've got the awake people and the empaths. And they are a hybrid that they made with connection to God. Or whichever way you want to call it, spiritual, the whole thing. Whatever it is to you. And those are awake. They're different to those ones are awake, but the Adam and Eve's, they cannot follow you. They cannot do it. It's like we were given spirits, but they weren't, because they just cannot break free. And so that's why it's pointless trying to wake them up, because you're never going to wake them up. They're never going to get it.
Well, but you think?
No, I think it's true. Even my own children, they cancelled Christmas for me. My son cancelled a meal just before Christmas. My son cancelled Christmas Day because of the virus. And, they think they were doing all that. And they've got, it's not, anyway, we know it doesn't even exist.
Well, here's the thing that you can do with Christmas is ditch it. Let them ditch it. And then you don't have to have a Christmas meal once a year. You can have meals together with your family all the time.
No, they don't want to. We're on a quarantine right now.
No, not right now. I'm saying when it's over. But
no, they want to believe it. They want to believe all that.
Yeah.
When you're like you and me, to them we're like foreigners. It's too foreign for them.
Right. Well, so they feel that they're obligated.
Yeah, they feel threatened by me, even though I'm just telling them the truth, and they can't break free from this system, this money system, ego system. I think that's the saddest bit, Jeff. That's the saddest bit, with the egos and the money, and that basically people can't get on. And we're here. One of the big things when you're an empath is about you care about everybody and you feel everybody. We should be more, I'm not saying everybody has to be like that, but it's better when you're like that. You're more aware of what's going on. These other ones, they're not aware of anything. All it is me, and they've turned everybody into narcissists. But anyway, that's changing the subject. But
no, not really, because we're kind of debating whether or not people can be changed or if they can change themselves.
You can't change a narcissist. Once they're one, they're for life. And they're just making a very narcissistic society.
I don't know. I was looking at some of these magic spells and stuff, and weird sort of beliefs. But they were talking about this one was like growing eyes in the back of your head. And obviously, you can't grow eyes in the back of your head. It's all allegorical again. Like your third eye is in the center of your forehead. But you can grow eyes in the back of your head if you're trapped in something, and then you can walk out backwards. Right? So you can actually free yourself from a spiritual trap or a spell if you go back in time, or like even doing something like maybe like learning another language would help you, because you're basically starting yourself out as a student, and you have to relearn things, and you're just training your body to relearn things. So if you get caught in a spell or like by a culture in mainstream horseshit, and you find yourself a different person, well, go learn another language, because that forces you back into human nature, how to learn things basic from human nature side instead of culture. Or grow eyes in the back of your head and literally walk backwards. My feet, I swear I did so much walking before sometimes my feet, they crack over and over. I'm getting old, and my feet are always cracking, and they get really stiff. But then I start to get calluses. So sometimes I literally walk backwards to train my feet to know how to walk properly. Just that motion of walking, because they get stiff, and then I don't pay attention to it anymore. So if I walk backwards, then I train my body to do it automatically without me thinking of it.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
literally, because there's an element here of forwards and backwards in this world that we don't. We just think, oh, I talk English forwards all the time, but I don't think we do. You know, Oprah says it too. Harpo is her product. There's an element of backwards that we're missing, that we should be somehow utilizing.
Oh, wouldn't you just love to know the way it really was, and unfortunately what we're living in now?
Yeah, with all the technology too, that would be good. Like if we had all our past spiritual knowledge from 5,000 years ago with the technology that we have today, because I don't think a lot of the technology we have today we didn't have back then. Not that we need it all today, but you know, certain things if we could have had it back then as well with the spiritual knowledge, I think it'd be a lot different. Because we seem to, as we get further and we grow with philosophy and technology, we seem to lose these spiritual contexts and the spiritual knowledge. So is that a natural trade-off? I don't know. Is that a natural balance? I don't think it is, really.
Well,
And
I suppose it's only getting half the story, isn't it? All the half the history.
Yeah. And we see humanity changing again with this transhumanism, where we're trying to get us with chips, and if they're putting nanoparticles and changing our DNA, what is that going to do to society, right?
Not good.
If that's what they do. We'll find that out, I guess, slowly but surely.
Well, we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes now. Is that enough, Jeff? Have you had enough now?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and talking a little bit more. Hopefully people understand a little bit more. So just before we go, like, what do you do? Are you just going to carry on researching it then?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. I don't know what I'm researching now. I have like 4 things open probably on my computer, or more than 4 or 5, like normal. I was looking at Roe, that language that they marginalize us with courts. A whole bunch of Aryan stuff. The white bread is open.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Thank you for that.
Symbols are open.
And the reason you sent the picture, some of it was the fact that, because obviously there's well, I don't know what he is. He's not Chinese, but there's like a Malaysian man on a horse, and he's very light coloured. That's why you sent it, isn't it? No?
Yeah, he would have been an Iranian, but that guy looks exactly like the Japanese and the Hussar, the Polish guy. They look the same, and they're from, you know what I mean? So that's why they're all, to me, they all look. It's the same culture.
Do you think that's because we've interbred then with everybody? I don't know.
Culture. It's a belief. That's why we all hold the same beliefs in religion, or somewhat close to Islam and Christianity. Islam to me is Christian. It's Christian, even though it deals with the Prophet Muhammad instead of Jesus. It's still the same scripture as the Jews, and they just changed it a little bit. The same symbols, same ideology, different stories, different characters. I was looking at this Starfleet thing too. Speaking of symbols, and this alien stuff because there was a guy from Iran or somewhere in the Middle East in Saudi Arabia. One of their leaders was saying that, oh yeah, the Americans already have a base on Mars. But then you look at some of these symbols for what they have a thing now called Starfleet Command, right out of Star Trek, but it's an actual United Federation of Planets. And so they're putting this stuff together, and they're not really telling us again. You know, there's the United States Space Force. They're putting that together, and it's got Roman numerals on it, by the way. And it also has that one little piece from the Maltese Cross ×4. And Vulcans, I found out, were they in the Bible, or were they actual real people or something like that? Vulcans, like Mr. Spock.
Right, really?
Yeah, the keepers of the fire.
Oh, golly.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna.
So you've got lots of work to do then, and more research.
Well, yeah, and we have to wait and see what they're. I think we can expect some alien some sort of UFO
Yeah,
activity.
you're not the
or
only one that thinks that. I don't know. Don't know.
10 years, maybe, but maybe it'll be 10, 20 years, though. Might be 2030. Mars mission. Mars is the god of war. You gotta think that way. Maybe not. Can't see the future. Don't know.
And you do all your research on your own, don't you?
What's that, sorry?
You do all your research on your own, don't you?
Well, no.
No?
Not in a sense. Because I get a lot of my information about culture from an anthropologist. So he goes out and looks at a lot of this stuff and then does reports on it. But he does so many, and then I have to go and spend hours on listening to what it is that he's showing you. And I like Robert because he's not always right. I take everything with a grain of salt, but he does his reports in in a very unbiased manner. He doesn't try and sway you. He just says, this is what it is, this is what the lore is, this is what I saw, you decide. Right? So none of this media garbage going, well, if you listen to me and do everything I tell you, you have everything you need to know. So it depends on who your experts are.
Well, I've really enjoyed our chat, Jeff.
Thank you, me too.
Thank you so much for spending that time. I thought you were going to talk just about the Aryans, but we did cover a few other subjects, but that's fine.
It's all related, yeah. It should all connect. My mom says to me sometimes, oh, you're talking circles. I'm like, no, it connects. That's the thing. It should connect.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
And chat room.
All right, Karen. Take care. See you later.
All right, don't go. We'll say goodbye off air. When I've pressed the button. Okay.
Right.
So just for the hangout. Bye, everybody.
See ya.